Hi, I'm Tara House, and I write science fiction and fantasy.
And I'm Erin, and I write fantasy fiction and poetry.
And today, we are talking about how to get into science fiction and fantasy if you've never read them before. Specifically, what are some good books that we think are entry-level science fiction, entry-level fantasy books. So if you want to get into reading fantasy, reading science fiction this year, you'll want to watch this video to the end. So I guess first we can talk about fantasy books to get into.
Yes.
And the first one on our list is a classic, a tried and true. It is The Hobbit.
Aww.
And I think The Hobbit is a good entry-level fantasy book. It was written a while ago. So it is, the writing is a little bit more like classic literature. It is a little bit harder to get into, but it's also a children's book.
Yeah, and it has a lighter voice to it.
Yes.
It is older, more, not necessarily literary, but like you said, it sounds like older literature, but it's written with, it seems like a lot of awareness of the genre. So it's not as intimidating, even though it sounds similar to those books.
Yes, I agree with that. And it's it's very lighthearted, but it still has adventure and it's got all the fantasy elements that you would expect. And it is one of the cornerstones of the genre. So
That's
I feel
true.
It's a good entry-level point. Yeah.
And it follows the classic, that classic structure. So it's it's a familiar story, even if you haven't ever read it or seen it, it's you'll still feel like it's not completely foreign. Going in. Yeah. Our next fantasy book that we think is kind of, entry level is Tress of the Emerald Sea. This one came out a few years ago. It's Brandon Sanderson. Even if you've not read any fantasy books, but you've looked up anything, you've probably seen his name somewhere. So this is one of his more recent, but it's standalone, which is one thing that, does make it a little less intimidating. And it's, since it is more modern, it's, probably easier to jump in and read than The Hobbit, but still has a lot of, good elements. It's still written in a way that is engaging and entertaining. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think The Hobbit is a really good starting point for that really classic fantasy where it's got all the fantasy species of the elves and the dwarves. Tress is a really good entry point into more modern second world fantasy where it's okay, we're in this totally different world with totally different rules. What's that like? But it's also a really fun adventure. This girl is going on this mission and she's a very relatable main character. She's very much getting outside of her comfort zone. She's a good person. And I think the secondary characters are really fun. And I think it's easy. Yeah, like you said, it's easy to read.
Yeah. And then one thing you said reminded me, it's also a great place to start if you have any interest in magic systems. Because The Hobbit is that real classic, there's just magic, but Brandon Sanderson's kind of known for we're going to set up some rules and things like that. Yeah, I think that's what you mentioned is the rules. So if you have any specific interest in that kind of thing, that's a good place to start.
Yeah, and I think it's a better place to start maybe if you're a beginner than Mistborn, which gets a lot more technical in its magic system.
Yeah.
If you're do I even like magic systems with specific rules? Tress is a good way to try it out.
Yeah, and she gives you the rules too.
And she gives you the rules. And she's such a good female main character.
She really is.
I love her.
She kind of redeems a lot of female characters gone wrong.
Yes, she's the type of main character where you read and you're I want to be friends with you.
Yeah.
So our last fantasy book that we'd recommend for beginners is Aragon, which is also kind of a modern classic in a way, but it's very stereotypical fantasy, but in a really fun way, I think.
Yeah. And I think it's stereotypical fantasy, but not in a way where it's the plot is so dense and complicated that you kind of lose it. It's a unique story, but it's also really straightforward. And you're not dealing with a massive cast of characters. In that way, it's probably easier to approach than The Hobbit, as far as you're really only following a few people at a time. And you do get a lot of those good classic elements. Because obviously, there's dragons. Hopefully that's obvious. But so it's still got those elements that make it really approachable.
Yeah, and it's a series. I think there's 4 books in the series. So that makes it different from The Hobbit and Tress in that it's not a standalone. But it's easy to read. The prose is pretty simple. Aragon is the classic farm boy protagonist. There's a dragon. There's magic. It's everything that you expect a fantasy book to be, but not overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's kind of different from with The Hobbit, kind of thinking about the antagonist versus Aragorn. I feel like it's a lot more, that part is a lot more fleshed out in Aragorn, maybe. So if you're also interested in that kind of, fantasy does like to explore the whole good versus evil theme a lot. And I think that is really clear in Aragorn as far as like there being like factions and groups of people and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's true.
All right. And then kind of a bonus for each category, we're also going to throw in a more kid-friendly recommendation. So our choice, there's so many good options, but the one that really stands out to us is Percy Jackson. So the first book, The Lightning Thief, is they're so well written.
They're so fun.
And the pace is good. It's not so fast that there's not depth. Like it's still a really good thing, especially for either kids who are starting to read books with a more complicated plot, or just adults. Like I would reread those books now. Like they're so good. So, it starts off in a really familiar setting for pretty much, anybody. And, it's got, like I said, that good pace where it's like, it keeps moving. It's interesting throughout, but it's not, moving so fast that you're kind of, lost in everything that's going on.
Yeah. And it's like a little bit educational because you get to learn about the different Greek gods, and like he's pretty accurate with his, his representation of Greek mythology. I think they're really fun reads. I think the characters in them are really good. And I feel like maybe just a good rule of thumb, if you're like trying to get into reading or get into any new genre, is like you can always start with kids' books.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. And this one's a good one where it's like you've either got the main series, which I think is 5 books, or there's like an extended one. So there's an element of you can kind of pick how far you want to go with them too.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
Okay, so now for some beginner sci-fi recommendations. We're going to start with a very popular one. It's very hopping right now, Red Rising. And I think Red Rising is a really good beginner sci-fi book, because, one, it's very easy to read. Like the prose is very like basic, kind of like Brandon Sanderson's prose. Like it's very easy to read. It's very like kind of cinematic in that it's meant to like fall away from the story. And then also it's like almost kind of Star Wars-y in that like you don't need to worry about real science. Like it's all about vibes. Like I was talking to my husband about it, and it's just like rock music all the way. Like it's just a guy's doing cool stuff. He's fighting for the people. Like there's cool swords. Like it's crazy fast paced. It's rock music. It really is. Like that. And there's so many edits on TikTok where it's like they have quotes from the book, and then it's like music. And it's like, or because the first line of the book is, and this is how they do it on TikTok, it's, I would have lived in peace, but my enemies brought me war. And like the main character is just a cool guy, and you're rooting for him the whole time. It's like one of the most fast-paced stories I've read. Another thing in its favor, which also Erin hasn't read the book.
I have no idea what's going on.
Talking over her. But another thing is its favor is like as a male main character, Darrow, the main character, is a really good male main character because he's still like really masculine and stuff, but he's a very emotional character. And like he's also like very relationship oriented, I think, which is not like as common in male main characters. Like at the beginning of the book, he's like, I just want to be with my wife and my family and do a good job at work. And that's like my life goals. And like, he's much more relationship oriented than some of the other characters. And I think he's just a good male main character.
Nice. I'm convinced.
You should. It's so fun. It's so fun.
Our second recommendation for sci-fi is Ender's Game. So this one, it's not as old as The Hobbit, but it's not super recent. I think, was it posted in the 90s?
Oh, maybe
early 2000s. I'm not really sure. But so this one is also really easy to read. I would say it kind of starts off in a kind of future version of our real world. So I don't think I would qualify it as a dystopia, but if you've enjoyed dystopian novels, I think that there is kind of a bridge there of like, it's kind of a similar vibe of like, it's the same world, but it works differently. And then you get, swept away from that world, slight spoiler, but, yeah, it's just like we read this one. I don't think it's geared toward kids, but like we read it as part of our class in like middle school. So it's like it's definitely not like super challenging as far as the way that it's written, but it is another one that's written very uniquely, has a really distinct voice, and definitely has like a setting and a world and a situation that is engaging and has high stakes and lots of interesting elements.
Yeah, I think I think a big theme in a lot of sci-fi books is like exploring different morality and like philosophical ideas. And I think Ender's Game is a good entry point into that because they do kind of like, they deal with a lot of questions of morality. Like the whole premise of the book when it starts is that kind of like you said, kind of dystopia, like most people are only allowed 2 kids. And this family has been allowed to have a third because they're also super smart. And they're like, want to create the genius to like help humanity fight against the aliens. That's how it starts. And then it goes from there. But yeah, they get into a lot of like interesting ethical questions. Yeah. But I think at an approachable level, like you said, because it's assigned in like middle school and high school.
Right. No, the philosophical thing, I forgot about that. It is strikingly philosophical for, just a book of, with things going on that it has in it. I also remember, this is like kind of a side thing, but there is a movie version of it. But there are so many scenes in that book that when I read it, it's so easy to kind of imagine it. It's just really well written, and it's also really just situations they get themselves into that you wouldn't necessarily imagine. And it's just like, I think that the like those scenes and the way they're written, like that image stuck with me more than like seeing them in the movie. I guess if that makes sense.
High praise. Yeah.
I remember it. Yeah, that one was really impactful. Like first time reading it. So say it's good for a good thought exercise and a good read. So yeah.
Okay, our last science fiction book is we're dipping our toes into hard sci-fi, which is not for everyone, and we're doing that with Project Hail Mary, which is going to be made into a movie sometime this year. So highly recommend reading the book before watching the movie, if you can. But this is good. This is written by the same guy who wrote The Martian, which is also a movie. But this is more sci-fi than The Martian is. Like this has more. Project Hail Mary has more stuff that's like not real. But he comes at it like, okay, if this fake thing were real, how would it work from a scientific perspective? And he like really kind of explains it. So I think it's a great book. I think it's easily written or like easy to read. It's well written, simple prose. And I think the characters are really good. And there's some really great relationship stuff and like just like friendships between characters, and a really good plot, and things are fast moving. But I will say it does have a lot of explaining of science, which could make or break it for you. Like for me, I'm not a science person. And to me, I was just like, okay, yeah, I believe that. Sure, that sounds right. Okay. That's what they're doing. That works. But so even though I'm not a science person, I don't mind it. But I know some people are like, that's too much science. So if you think you might like hard sci-fi, Project Hail Mary will tell you whether or not you will, I think.
I have only seen The Martian, so I'm 2 degrees away from having read Project Hail Mary, but again, sold.
Yeah. Well, I feel like The Martian is good too, because The Martian is like, if you want hard science fiction, but you're not as into like more crazy stuff, The Martian might be better. Yeah. But I think Project Hail Mary is the better book. I also think the Martian movie and the book, like that's a great book adaptation. Like they're very, to me, I'm like this, I feel like this is the book. Like they're very one for one in my mind. So for a little bonus recommendation, just like we were talking about, children's books are a great way to get into a genre. I'm going to recommend anything by Margaret Peterson Haddix. She writes like middle grade / YA. Like I would describe it as low sci-fi. Like it's not like Aliens. There's not time, like, well, there is, some of them have time travel, but it's like there's like one sci-fi thing. So like there's one book she does that's like, this girl realizes that she is a clone of her dead older sister. And like the story goes from there and it like explains it. And it's like, it's children's books, so really accessible, but she explores some interesting stuff in there. And I feel like it's almost like low sci-fi, maybe almost kind of like a little creepy in like the way Severance is like a little creepy.
Okay.
She has another series called Among the Hidden, which is in dystopia where you're only allowed to have 2 kids and it's about all the third kids and they're like hiding from these like people. So it's very good. She does have one with time travel. But yeah, she writes really good sci-fi books that are super approachable and I think really fast paced because they're children's books and they're really fun. Okay, so those are our recommendations for getting into science fiction and fantasy for the first time. If you have other books you'd recommend to people, please drop them in the comments. If you've never read a science fiction or fantasy book and you're going to, let us know which book are you going to read first, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.